Hello, dear friends. So glad you could join us at another Harry. Today's narrative adventure is titled What If Wednesday Exposed Dumbledore's Plan to Sacrifice Harry and the Wizarding World Rioted. We put our heart into every story we share. If you appreciate our work, showing some love with a like and subscribe would make our day. The story begins now. Chapter 1, The Outsider's Perspective. The Great Hall buzzed with the usual start-of-term excitement. Candles floated beneath the enchanted ceiling that mirrored the stormy sky outside while students caught up with friends after summer break. At the Gryffindor table, Harry Potter ignored the whispers and pointed stares following him after the Daily Prophet's summer-long campaign painting him as an attention-seeking liar. "Just ignore them," Hermione whispered, noticing Harry's clenched jaw. "Trying to," Harry muttered, glancing toward the staff table where Dumbledore chatted with Professor Flitwick, still not making eye contact with him. Harry hadn't spoken to the headmaster since the night in the hospital wing after the Triwizard Tournament. The old wizard's continued avoidance stung worse than the stares. "Who's that woman in the pink?" Ron asked through a mouthful of bread. Hermione frowned at the toad-like woman smiling sweetly at the students. "Dolores Umbridge. She works for Fudge at the Ministry." Their speculation halted as Professor McGonagall entered with the first years trailing behind her. But something unusual caught everyone's attention. Among the nervous 11-year-olds stood a tall teenage girl with pale skin, long black braids, and a permanent scowl. She wore the standard Hogwarts robes but somehow made them look like funeral attire. "Blimey, she's not a first year," Ron whispered. The sorting began as usual, but curious whispers circulated about the older girl waiting her turn. Finally, when only she remained, Dumbledore stood. "Before we conclude our sorting, I'd like to welcome a transfer student joining our 5th years. Miss Wednesday Addams comes to us from the Salem Witches Institute in America. Her family has relocated to England, and we're pleased to have her continue her education at Hogwarts." Wednesday stepped forward with perfect posture and zero nervousness, sitting gracefully on the stool as McGonagall placed the sorting hat on her head. For nearly 3 minutes, the hat remained silent, an unusually long sorting. Students began to fidget until finally, "Ravenclaw," the hat declared, though it sounded strangely hesitant. The Ravenclaw table applauded politely as Wednesday walked toward them, her face never changing expression. She sat next to Luna Lovegood, who immediately offered her a radish earring. "For protection against Raxburts," Luna said dreamily. "You have fewer than most people, but it's always good to be careful." Most would have mocked Luna, but Wednesday simply studied the earring. "Interesting. In my family's grimoire, radishes carved on the solstice are used to reveal poisoners at dinner parties." Luna beamed. "I knew we'd be friends." At the Gryffindor table, Harry tore his attention away from the strange new girl as Dumbledore began announcements. When Umbridge interrupted the headmaster mid-speech, Harry noticed something unusual. Wednesday Addams was watching Dumbledore with narrowed eyes, studying him like a specimen rather than listening to Umbridge's simpering speech about ministry oversight. Wednesday found Hogwarts both fascinating and disturbing. The castle itself appealed to her Gothic sensibilities, but the forced cheerfulness of many students was off-putting. Only Luna seemed genuine, though admittedly strange. They formed an immediate alliance as fellow outsiders. Her first week of classes proved that magical education in Britain differed substantially from America. Defense against the dark arts particularly troubled her, not because she couldn't handle the material, but because there wasn't any. "This is pointless," she told Luna, watching Umbridge patrol the classroom while students silently read the mind-numbing ministry-approved textbook. "At Salem, we practiced hexing each other by 3rd year. The ministry doesn't want us learning practical defense," Luna whispered. "They think Dumbledore's building an army." Wednesday's eyes flicked to Harry Potter across the room, who was visibly struggling to control his temper as Umbridge hovered near his desk. "And is he?" Luna shrugged. "Not yet." When Harry finally snapped at Umbridge, insisting that Voldemort had returned, Wednesday didn't join the gasps or whispers. She simply watched the power dynamics unfold, noting how Umbridge gained satisfaction from Harry's outburst while Dumbledore's name became ammunition. After class, she followed Harry at a distance as he stormed to McGonagall's office with his detention slip. The professor's reaction confirmed what Wednesday suspected: the faculty were under constraints regarding both Harry Potter and Umbridge. During lunch the next day, whispers spread about Harry's detention. Wednesday overheard Hermione examining his hand at the Gryffindor table. "That's a blood quill," she told Luna matter-of-factly. "They're controlled magical artifacts, only legal for binding contracts at Gringotts." Luna tilted her head. "How do you know that?" "My family collects them," Wednesday replied. "Along with thumb screws, iron maidens, and various medieval torture devices. My father calls it historical preservation." That evening, Wednesday deliberately broke curfew, wandering the corridors until Umbridge caught her and assigned detention. As expected, she found Harry already in Umbridge's office the following night, etching lines into his skin. Umbridge smiled sweetly. "Miss Adams will be joining you, Mr. Potter. Perhaps you'll both learn proper respect for rules." When she left them alone to write lines, Harry glanced sideways at Wednesday, who took the blood quill without reaction. "Doesn't that hurt?" he whispered, seeing the words appear on her skin. Wednesday watched the cuts heal and reopen with clinical interest. "Pain is an old friend. My brother and I practice torture resistance techniques during summer holidays." Harry stared at her, unsure whether to laugh or be concerned. "You're joking, right?" "I never joke about family traditions," she replied flatly, continuing her lines without complaint. "You should press a mixture of murtlap essence and dittany on those cuts afterward. Prevents scarring and numbs the pain." Harry's expression softened slightly. "Thanks. I've been using just murtlap." Hermione's idea. "Smart friend," Wednesday noted. "But incomplete knowledge. The Addams family has extensive experience with both inflicting and treating wound-based curses." They wrote in silence for several minutes before Wednesday spoke again without looking up. "Why does Dumbledore allow this to happen to you?" Harry stiffened. "What do you mean?" "Blood quills on students. The headmaster surely knows. Yet he does nothing." Wednesday's dark eyes met his. "Curious, isn't it?" Before Harry could respond, Umbridge returned, and they finished their detention in silence. But Wednesday had planted the first seed of doubt, she could see it taking root behind Harry's eyes. Over the next 2 weeks, Wednesday observed the school dynamics with growing suspicion. In every interaction, she noticed how Dumbledore maintained distance from Harry while still controlling the circumstances around him. The pattern seemed deliberate, isolation making Harry more vulnerable, more desperate for guidance. During her third shared detention with Harry, she finally asked the question that had been forming. "Does Dumbledore ever speak to you directly? Provide guidance, protection, anything a responsible guardian figure might offer?" Harry hesitated, the blood quill pausing over parchment. "He's busy. There's a lot happening with Voldemort back. Too busy for the student being tortured under his roof?" Wednesday asked. "Too occupied to look at you during meals? To acknowledge you in hallways?" Harry's jaw tightened. "You don't understand." "I understand manipulation," Wednesday countered. "My parents encourage independence by regularly attempting to kill my brother and me. But they're transparent about their methods and motivations. Your headmaster plays a different game." Harry glared at her but said nothing more. After detention, Wednesday headed to the library instead of Ravenclaw Tower. Luna found her there, surrounded by historical texts on the First Wizarding War. "You're quite interested in recent history," Luna commented, sitting beside her. Wednesday flipped a page. "History reveals patterns. I find the Dumbledore Potter pattern troubling." Luna's dreamy expression sharpened momentarily. "So you've noticed too?" "Most people don't. The Raxperts cloud their thinking." "I'm immune to Raxperts," Wednesday deadpanned. "And propaganda. Something is wrong with how Potter's being handled." Luna nodded. "Daddy says the same thing in the Quibbler." Nobody listens, of course. Wednesday closed her book. I need more information. Write to your father and ask what he knows about connections between Dumbledore, Potter, and Voldemort. Meanwhile, I'll contact my family about certain, dark magic topics the Hogwarts library won't cover. Luna didn't ask questions, one of her most valuable qualities. She simply nodded and said, I'll use our special invisible ink. The Ministry has been intercepting owls. The next morning at breakfast, an elegant raven swooped into the great hall instead of the usual owls, causing a stir as it landed precisely in front of Wednesday at the Ravenclaw table. Tied to its leg was a small package wrapped in black leather. Beautiful bird, Luna commented as Wednesday untied the package. Corvus Corax. They're highly intelligent. This is Pericles, Wednesday said as the raven helped itself to her toast. The Addams family doesn't use owls. Too conventional. Inside the package was a small, ancient book bound in something that didn't appear to be leather and a letter written in what looked suspiciously like blood. Wednesday read it without reaction, though her eyes narrowed slightly at certain passages. Later that evening, Harry spotted Wednesday and Luna sitting by the Black Lake, heads bent over the strange book. Curiosity pulled him toward them after Quidditch practice. Potter, Wednesday acknowledged without looking up. How's the hand? Harry flexed his scarred hand. Better with the Didney added. Thanks. He peered at the book, but Wednesday subtly angled it away. The pages contained disturbing illustrations that moved in ways that made his stomach turn. What are you reading? He asked. Anthropological research, Wednesday replied vaguely. Family heirloom. Luna smiled. We're exploring alternative theories about you-know-who's survival. The official explanation has too many Nargle traces to be trustworthy. Harry hesitated, then sat down beside them. What official explanation? The Ministry denies he's back at all. Not the Ministry, Wednesday clarified. Dumbledore. Has he explained to you how Voldemort survived when the killing curse rebounded? Harry shifted uncomfortably. Not exactly. I know my mother's protection, protected you, yes, Wednesday interrupted. But what protected him from complete destruction? Has anyone explained that? Harry realized they hadn't. Dumbledore had shared theories about his scar and the connection to Voldemort, but never explicitly addressed how the Dark Lord had survived as a wraith for 13 years. I thought, well, dark magic of some kind, Harry said lamely. Wednesday exchanged a significant look with Luna. Indeed. Very specific dark magic. The kind most wizards won't name. Before Harry could press further, a commotion near the castle drew their attention. Students were gathering around a notice being posted by Umbridge, another educational decree. We should continue this conversation somewhere private, Wednesday said, closing the book. The walls at Hogwarts have both ears and agendas. Over the following weeks, Harry found himself increasingly drawn into Wednesday and Luna's research sessions. At first, he came with Ron and Hermione, but Ron quickly lost patience with what he called conspiracy theories, and Hermione became frustrated with Wednesday's unorthodox sources. You can't possibly believe that book. Hermione had exclaimed after seeing a particularly gruesome chapter on soul magic. It contradicts everything established about magical theory. Established by whom? Wednesday had countered. British wizards with political agendas? My ancestors practiced magic while yours were still debating whether the earth was flat. The argument had ended with Hermione storming off, dragging Ron with her. Harry, however, stayed. Something about Wednesday's methodical questioning resonated with doubts he'd been suppressing. Meanwhile, Dumbledore's army formed in response to Umbridge's theoretical teaching approach. Wednesday joined without enthusiasm. Defensive magic is practical, she told Harry during their first meeting in the Room of Requirement. But your teaching ministry approved spells to children to fight experienced killers. It's like bringing scissors to a guillotine fight. Got better ideas? Harry challenged. Wednesday demonstrated by silently transfiguring the floor beneath a practice dummy into quicksand, then freezing it solid with the dummy half submerged. Combat isn't about fair play. It's about survival. My great-aunt Calpurnia once held off 7 dark wizards with animated cutlery and a well-placed banishment charm to their kneecaps. Her unconventional approach earned respect among the DA members, especially after Umbridge's inquisitorial squad began actively hunting them. Wednesday's traps and misdirection spells kept their meetings secret longer than would have otherwise been possible. During this time, the seed of doubt Wednesday had planted continued growing. Harry began noticing how Dumbledore orchestrated events around him while maintaining distance. The old wizard's continued avoidance felt less like protection and more like calculation. Wednesday's breakthrough came in mid-December, just before Christmas break. Luna's father had sent back a comprehensive file of newspaper clippings, witness statements, and historical anomalies surrounding both Voldemort's first defeat and subsequent events at Hogwarts since Harry arrived. "Look at the pattern," Wednesday said, spreading documents across an abandoned classroom floor. Harry, exhausted from a clemency practice with Snape, rubbed his scar as he examined them. "Every year since you arrived at Hogwarts, you've faced life-threatening situations," Wednesday continued. "The Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, Dementors, the tournament. Each encounter brought you into direct conflict with Voldemort or his agents. Bad luck?" Harry suggested weakly. "In a castle run by allegedly the greatest wizard alive." Wednesday raised an eyebrow. "A more logical explanation is that these were tests." Harry frowned. "Tests for what?" "To prepare you for something," Luna said, arranging clippings in chronological order. "But prepare how? And for what purpose?" Wednesday pointed to her family's ancient book. "This discusses magical bonds created through attempted murder and rebounded curses. The connection between you and Voldemort isn't just a scar, it's deeper." Harry touched his forehead. "Dumbledore said something similar. That when Voldemort tried to kill me, he transferred some of his powers to me. That's why I can speak Parseltongue." Wednesday's eyes sharpened. "Powers transfer through spell backlash is extremely rare. But transfer of—" She hesitated, exchanging glances with Luna before continuing. "Essence is documented in cases of certain dark rituals." "What kind of essence?" Harry asked. Wednesday closed her book. "We need more evidence before making accusations. But I believe your scar contains more than just residual magic, Harry. And I think Dumbledore knows exactly what it is." Harry stared at her. "Are you saying there's a piece of Voldemort, in me?" Wednesday nodded grimly. "And based on Dumbledore's behavior, his distance, the trials, the lack of direct protection despite obvious danger, I suspect his long-term plan accounts for this fact in ways you wouldn't appreciate knowing." The implication hung heavy in the silence that followed. Christmas break arrived with most students leaving Hogwarts. Wednesday, however, stayed behind, telling Luna she needed access to the castle's resources. In reality, she had a more specific objective: Dumbledore's office. The opportunity came when Mr. Weasley was attacked and the Weasley children, along with Harry, were whisked away in the night. Wednesday, who had been monitoring the hallways under a disillusionment charm, followed the commotion to Dumbledore's office and watched as they departed via Portkey. With the castle in momentary chaos and Dumbledore occupied with the order, she slipped inside the office before the gargoyle could fully close. The circular room was empty save for Fawkes, who trilled softly from his perch. "I mean no harm to your master," Wednesday told the Phoenix quietly. "Only truth-seeking." The magical bird studied her with intelligent eyes before letting out a soft musical note that seemed neither alarm nor objection. Working methodically, Wednesday examined the office. The silver instruments puffing smoke particularly interested her. Several were monitoring devices keyed to specific magical signatures. One, she realized with narrowed eyes, was tracking Harry's life force, with a particular focus on his scar. The portrait of Phineas Nigellus Black watched her exploration with amusement. "Ravenclaw, aren't you?" Curiosity and cleverness is a dangerous combination. Knowledge without purpose is just trivia, Wednesday replied, spotting the cabinet that must contain the pensieve she'd heard about. Inside, the stone basin glowed with silvery memories. Wednesday hesitated briefly, viewing another's memories without permission crossed even her flexible ethical boundaries. But her growing certainty about Harry's fate overrode such concerns. She extracted several memory vials labeled with years corresponding to significant events in Harry's life. One in particular caught her eye, labeled simply, Prophecy, Trelawney. One by one, she experienced Dumbledore's memories, the prophecy that marked Harry before birth, Snape's pleading for Lily Potter's life, Dumbledore placing baby Harry with the Dursleys despite McGonagall's objections, and most damning, a private conversation with Snape after Harry's second year. The connection between them grows stronger, Dumbledore said in the memory. I fear my suspicions are correct, Severus. When Voldemort cast the killing curse, he unknowingly created a seventh Horcrux. Potter himself? Snape looked horrified. Yes. And in the end. The boy must die, Snape finished, face pale. Dumbledore nodded gravely. And Voldemort himself must do it. That is essential. Wednesday pulled back from the memory, her usually impassive face showing shock. The pieces aligned with terrible clarity, Dumbledore had been grooming Harry as a sacrifice since infancy. More memories confirmed her suspicions, Dumbledore admitting he knew about Harry's abusive home life but considered it necessary to keep him humble, deliberately testing Harry with the Philosopher's Stone, allowing his participation in the Triwizard Tournament as another test of his resilience. The final memory showed a recent conversation with Snape where Dumbledore discussed his deteriorating health due to a cursed ring and outlined the timeline for Harry's eventual sacrifice, after Dumbledore himself had died and other Horcruxes were destroyed. The boy must not know until the last moment, Dumbledore insisted. Until there is no other choice. Wednesday carefully replaced the memories and exited the office unseen. Dawn found her by the lake, her normally stoic face troubled as she processed what she'd learned. The truth was worse than she'd imagined, Harry wasn't just fighting someone else's war, he was being raised like a pig for slaughter. By the time students returned from break, Wednesday had made her decision. Harry Potter deserved to know the truth about his intended fate. Whether he accepted it or fought against it should be his choice, not a manipulation hidden behind twinkling eyes and half-truths. She found him in the library, alone for once, staring unseeingly at a Transfiguration text while rubbing his scar. We need to talk, she said without preamble. I know what Dumbledore's planning, and why your connection to Voldemort matters. Harry looked up, exhaustion evident in his eyes. What are you talking about? Wednesday sat across from him, placing a small vial on the table between them. This contains a copy of what I discovered in Dumbledore's pensieve during break. You deserve to know what they've planned for you since you were an infant. Harry stared at the swirling memory. You broke into Dumbledore's office? Yes. And what I found explains everything, why he's kept you at arm's length this year, why he's never given you the full truth about your connection to Voldemort. Wednesday leaned forward. Harry, do you know what a Horcrux is? Harry shook his head, eyes fixed on the vial. It's the darkest of magic, splitting one's soul through murder and sealing it in an object to achieve immortality. Wednesday tapped the vial. Voldemort made several. Dumbledore has been hunting them. But there's one he can't destroy without sacrificing you. Harry's face drained of color. What are you saying? Your scar doesn't just connect you to Voldemort, Wednesday said quietly. It contains a piece of his soul. According to Dumbledore's own memories, you must die at Voldemort's hand to destroy it. Harry reached for the vial with trembling fingers. That can't be true. Dumbledore wouldn't, see for yourself, Wednesday interrupted. Then decide what to do with the truth. But know this, my family has experience with soul magic the British wizarding world has forgotten. If there's another way to separate you from the Horcrux without death, the Adams Library might contain it. Harry clutched the vial, conflict evident in his face. "Why are you helping me? You barely know me." Wednesday's dark eyes met his. "I recognize the difference between sacrifice and exploitation. Choosing to die for a cause is nobility. Being raised as an unwitting sacrifice is abuse." Her voice softened slightly. "And perhaps I find Dumbledore's manipulation personally offensive. The Addams family has never hidden our darkness behind claims of greater good." Harry studied her face, seeing sincerity beneath her usual deadpan expression. Finally, he nodded. "Show me." As they headed toward the room of requirement where a pensieve could be conjured, Wednesday felt an unfamiliar emotion, hope. Not for herself, but for Harry Potter, a boy who deserved better than being the disposable weapon in an old man's elaborate war strategy. "Whatever we find," she told him as the room's door materialized, "remember that prophecies and plans can be subverted. My ancestor Morticia Addams was prophesied to die before her 16th birthday. She celebrated her 163rd by dancing on the prophet's grave." A ghost of a smile touched Harry's lips. "I'm starting to see why the Sorting Hat put you in Ravenclaw. You're terrifying, but brilliant." "The Hat wanted Slytherin," Wednesday admitted as they entered the room. "I persuaded it otherwise. Some battlefields require neutral territory." Behind them, the door sealed shut, giving Harry privacy for the moment his world would shatter, and perhaps, Wednesday thought, for the moment he would begin to truly fight for himself rather than for Dumbledore's orchestrated endgame. Chapter 2, The Revelation. Harry stumbled out of the pensieve, legs buckling beneath him as he collapsed onto the floor of the room of requirement. His breath came in ragged gasps, face ashen as the memories he'd just witnessed replayed in his mind. Wednesday sat silently in a high-backed chair, watching him process the unthinkable truth. "That can't," Harry's voice broke. "He wouldn't, he already has," Wednesday said quietly. "For 14 years. Harry slammed his fist against the stone floor, a primal sound of betrayal tearing from his throat. "All this time. All those talks about love and choices and doing what's right," his voice dropped to a whisper. "He's been raising me to die." Wednesday allowed him his rage, neither offering empty comfort nor pushing for immediate action. After several minutes, Harry finally looked up, eyes red-rimmed but fiercely determined. "I need to show Ron and Hermione." Wednesday nodded once. "Expected. But choose carefully who else learns this. Knowledge is power, but it's also a target on your back." Harry pushed himself to his feet, swaying slightly. "Why didn't he just tell me? If I have to die to stop Voldemort, would you have walked willingly to your death at 11? 12? 14? Wednesday tilted her head. "Dumbledore needed you compliant but brave. Moldable but resilient. The perfect sacrifice who offers himself willingly." Harry's jaw clenched. "So what now? I'm still a Horcrux. Voldemort's still out there. Now we research alternatives," Wednesday said, rising from her chair. "Dumbledore's plan assumes destroying a Horcrux requires destroying its container completely. That assumption needs testing." "How?" Wednesday's lips curved in a rare, slight smile. "I've already contacted my family. My mother is quite excited about the challenge. She hasn't extracted a soul fragment from a living host since Cousin Itt's unfortunate possession during the 70s. Convincing Ron and Hermione proved more difficult than Harry anticipated. The three sat in the shadowy corner of an abandoned classroom as his friends emerged from the pensieve, expressions horrified. "There must be some explanation," Hermione insisted, voice shaking. "Dumbledore wouldn't just raise you like a pig for slaughter." "He did exactly that," Wednesday countered from where she leaned against the wall. "With calculation and intent." "But the greater good," Hermione started. "Is a concept used to justify atrocities throughout history," Wednesday interrupted. "Ask yourself this, if the situation demanded sacrificing you to save thousands, would Dumbledore have the decency to tell you before sending you to die?" "Ron," who had remained uncharacteristically silent, finally spoke. "My dad worships Dumbledore. My whole family does." He looked up, face pale beneath his freckles. "But this is wrong. Beyond wrong. We need to confront him," Hermione said, wiping tears from her face. Harry shook his head. "Not yet. He'll just obliviate us or feed us some story about how I'm not ready for the truth." "But, Hermione, I've spent every summer locked in a cupboard or a bedroom with bars on the window because Dumbledore insisted I stay with people who hate me." Harry's voice hardened. He knew what they were like. He knew what my life was there. And he sent me back every year because it kept me humble and safe from outside threats while I was being abused inside those walls. Hermione fell silent, unable to argue. "So what do we do?" Ron asked quietly. "Research," Harry said firmly. "Wednesday thinks there might be a way to remove the Horcrux without killing me." "If Dumbledore bothered looking for alternatives, he didn't," Wednesday said. "His memories show he considered your death a necessity from the beginning. Any genuine search for another solution would have undermined his entire strategy." Hermione's academic instincts finally overrode her deference to authority. "The library won't have anything on Horcruxes. They're too dark." "Correct," Wednesday nodded. "We need access to less curated information sources." She pulled a small silver mirror from her pocket. "My parents have already begun searching our family library. Meanwhile, we should locate the other Horcruxes Dumbledore mentioned." "Without him knowing we're looking," Harry added. "If he realizes we know his plan, he'll accelerate it," Wednesday finished. "Or find ways to ensure your compliance through other means. Emotional manipulation is his specialty." The gravity of their situation settled over the room. For teenagers plotting against one of the most powerful wizards in Britain while a Dark Lord hunted them from the outside. "We need help," Ron said suddenly. "Someone who knows about dark objects but isn't loyal to you-know-who or Dumbledore." An unlikely name occurred to all of them simultaneously. "Sirius," Harry breathed. "And his family library at Grimmauld Place is full of dark magic books." Wednesday raised an eyebrow. "The escaped convict Sirius Black is your ally?" "My godfather," Harry explained. "And he's innocent." "It's complicated." "Family usually is," Wednesday replied with the hint of a smirk. "My family reunion last year ended with 3 explosions and Uncle Fester in traction. We considered it unusually peaceful." Despite everything, Harry found himself laughing, a short, desperate sound that nevertheless broke the tension. Whatever came next, he wasn't facing it alone. Contacting Sirius proved challenging with Umbridge monitoring all communications. Wednesday solved the problem by offering the use of her family's two-way mirror system, which operated on principles closer to necromancy than standard enchantments. "The Ministry can't detect it because they've banned the underlying magic for centuries," she explained, handing Harry an ornate hand mirror with skeletal fingers forming the handle. "Is this made of actual?" Harry began. "Great-grandmother Desdemona's left hand," Wednesday confirmed. "She donated it willingly after her death. Apparently, her spirit got tired of watching great-grandfather Mortimer attempt household chores unsupervised." Harry exchanged glances with Ron and Hermione before hesitantly taking the mirror. "And I just... Speak the name of the person you wish to contact who possesses the paired mirror." "My mother sent the other one to your godfather yesterday via Pericles." Harry held the macabre object carefully. "Sirius Black." The mirror's surface rippled like disturbed water before Sirius's concerned face appeared. "Harry. Are you alright? This mirror arrived with the strangest bird I've ever seen and a letter from someone claiming to be an Adams." "I'm fine, Sirius," Harry reassured him, relief flooding through him at seeing his godfather. "And yes, the Adamses are helping me. We need to talk privately. It's about Dumbledore." Sirius's expression grew serious. "What's happened?" "Not over the mirror," Harry said. We need access to your family library, and soon. It's about Horcruxes. Sirius paled visibly. Horcruxes? Where did you hear? He stopped, glancing around. Never mind. Easter break is coming. I'll find a way to get you here. After ending the call, Harry turned to Wednesday. What if Dumbledore tries to keep me at Hogwarts over break? Wednesday's dark eyes gleamed. Leave that to me. Adamses excel at creating distractions. The next morning, the Great Hall erupted in chaos when every piece of silverware at the Slytherin table transformed into writhing snakes during breakfast. Simultaneously, the suits of armor throughout the castle began reciting increasingly obscene limericks about Dolores Umbridge's teaching methods. As Umbridge screeched orders at the inquisitorial squad to restore order, Wednesday calmly buttered her toast. Quite the coincidence, Hermione remarked, eyes narrowed suspiciously. Indeed, Wednesday agreed. Almost as coincidental as the swamp that will materialize in the East Corridor in approximately 3 minutes. Ron choked on his pumpkin juice. You didn't. I merely suggested to your brothers that their planned departure might benefit from multiple simultaneous distractions, Wednesday said. They were quite receptive. True to her word, a massive portable swamp exploded into existence on the 3rd floor minutes later, followed by an impressive fireworks display that chased Umbridge across the castle. In the ensuing bedlam, the spectacular exit of Fred and George Weasley on broomsticks captured all attention. No one noticed 4 students slipping into an unused classroom to finalize their Easter break plans. That should keep Umbridge too busy to prevent anyone from leaving for break, Wednesday noted as distant explosions punctuated her words. What about Dumbledore? Hermione asked. Already handled, Wednesday said. Anonymous tip to the Daily Prophet about International Confederation meetings. He's been missing to deal with school matters. His reputation as supreme mugwump is at stake. Harry shook his head in amazement. You're terrifying, you know that. Thank you, Wednesday replied with perfect sincerity. My mother will be pleased to hear my education isn't being wasted. Easter break arrived with Dumbledore conspicuously absent, called away to emergency ICW meetings in Geneva. Umbridge, still finding random fireworks in unexpected places, was too frazzled to notice or prevent Harry's departure with Ron and Hermione to the supposed safety of the burrow. In reality, they went directly to Grimmauld Place, where Sirius waited with barely contained anxiety. Once inside the protected house, Harry wasted no time, connecting Wednesday via the mirror to include her in the conversation. Show him, Harry told her. Wednesday nodded and held up a vial identical to the one she'd shown Harry. I've duplicated the relevant memories. You'll need a pensieve. Already prepared, Sirius said grimly, leading them to the Black family library where an ancient stone basin sat waiting. What followed was a grim hour as Sirius, then Remus who arrived shortly after, viewed the damning memories. Sirius emerged enraged, smashing an antique vase against the wall. That manipulative old, he cut himself off, looking at Harry with raw anguish. I should have been there for you. Should have protected you from him. You couldn't have known, Harry said quietly. I suspected something wasn't right, Remus admitted, his face ashen. The way Dumbledore insisted on controlling all information about you, your location, your training, but I never imagined this. Through the mirror, Wednesday observed their reactions. The question now is whether you'll help us find another solution. Of course we will, Sirius growled. The Black Library has some of the darkest books in Britain. If there's information about Horcruxes anywhere, it's here. Remus nodded firmly. And I have contacts in the experimental charms community who might help, discreetly. For the next 3 days, they immersed themselves in grim research. The Black Library yielded disturbing information about Horcruxes, their creation, properties, and typical destruction methods. Wednesday contributed knowledge from her family's archives via the mirror, including several obscure Eastern European texts that referenced soul fragments. On the 4th day, Hermione found something promising in a blood-spattered tome hidden behind a false panel. Listen to this, she said, translating from ancient Greek. The vessel containing the soul fragment may be preserved if the fragment is transferred to another receptacle before destruction. This transference requires complex ritual preparation and often results in the death of the ritualist, but preserves the original vessel intact. So it's possible, Harry said, hope flickering for the first time. I don't have to die. Theoretically, Hermione cautioned. But the ritual, my mother has found something similar in our archives, Wednesday interrupted from the mirror. A variation used by Romanian witches in the 1500s that didn't require the ritualist's death. Requires specific astronomical alignment, willingly given blood of an enemy, and essence of Dementor. Sirius grimaced. Cheery shopping list. Actually achievable, Remus countered thoughtfully. The Ministry keeps Dementors. With the right connections. Or the right break-in, Sirius suggested with a hint of his old mischief. Harry felt a weight lifting slightly from his shoulders. So there is another way. Dumbledore either didn't know or chose not to pursue it, Wednesday finished. Either possibility reflects poorly on the wisdom of following his plan. Their research continued, compiling information about both Horcruxes themselves and this potential ritual. However, a new complication arose when Harry experienced an intense vision of Sirius being tortured by Voldemort at the Department of Mysteries. It's not real, Sirius insisted, standing very much untortured before them. He's trying to lure you there. But why? Ron asked. What's at the Department of Mysteries that you know who wants? The prophecy, Remus realized. The full prophecy about Harry and Voldemort is kept there. Wednesday's voice came sharply through the mirror. This is an opportunity. An opportunity for Harry to get killed. Hermione exclaimed. An opportunity to expose Dumbledore while acquiring the prophecy ourselves, Wednesday clarified. The Department of Mysteries houses more than prophecies. Their research includes soul magic. Harry's eyes widened. You think they might have information about removing Horcruxes? Highly probable, Wednesday nodded. The Ministry studies death and its magical implications extensively. That information combined with what we've already gathered could complete our ritual framework. Sirius looked uncertain. Walking into a trap seems risky. Not if we control the narrative, Wednesday countered. Dumbledore has kept information from everyone, not just Harry. The wizarding public deserves to know their supposed leader plans to sacrifice a child rather than seek alternatives. You're suggesting we expose Dumbledore publicly? Hermione looked horrified. The chaos that would cause, is precisely what we need, Wednesday interrupted. Chaos creates opportunity. While the wizarding world processes Dumbledore's betrayal, we can access resources currently denied to us. Harry paced the library, mind racing. She's right. As long as Dumbledore controls the narrative, we're fighting both him and Voldemort. So what's the plan? Ron asked. Wednesday's rare smile was anything but comforting. We give Voldemort exactly what he expects, with a few Adams modifications. They returned to Hogwarts with a dangerous plan in motion. Wednesday's family had provided several dark artifacts that would prove crucial, including a modified pensieve that could project memories as large-scale illusions visible to crowds. Sirius and Remus remained at Grimmauld Place, preparing backup plans and emergency extraction if needed. To maintain appearances, they resumed their normal schedules. Harry continued his occlumency lessons with Snape, though with renewed focus now that he understood the true importance of blocking Voldemort. Wednesday attended classes with her usual detached demeanor, though Luna noticed her increased intensity. You're planning something dangerous, Luna observed during charms practice. Wednesday didn't deny it. Sometimes the cure is more painful than the disease. But necessary nonetheless, Luna nodded. The Rotfong conspiracy won't be happy. Few conspirators appreciate exposure, Wednesday agreed, understanding Luna's odd terminology reflected genuine insight. Would you help us when the time comes? Luna smiled dreamily. Of course. Friends help friends overthrow manipulative authority figures. The catalyst came sooner than expected. During Harry's history exam, he experienced his most vivid vision yet, Sirius screaming under Voldemort's Cruciatus curse. Despite knowing it was false, the plan required his reaction appear genuine. He bolted from the exam, Ron and Hermione following with well-practiced concern. They made a show of trying to contact Sirius via the flue in Umbridge's office, knowing they'd be caught. When Umbridge threatened Harry with the Cruciatus curse, Hermione led her into the Forbidden Forest with tales of Dumbledore's secret weapon. The resulting confrontation with centaurs removed Umbridge from the equation, leaving Harry and his friends apparently free to rush to the Department of Mysteries on their own. Luna, Ginny, and Neville insisted on accompanying them, unexpected but not unwelcome allies. As they prepared to leave, Wednesday appeared silently behind them, 3 ravens perched on her shoulders. Phase 1 complete, she announced. My family is in position. The ravens will guide us once inside the ministry. Your family is involved? Neville asked nervously. My parents have been eager to visit Britain's wizarding institutions, Wednesday said with disturbing calm. Particularly their less accessible areas. They reached London via Thestrals, the skeletal horses seeming particularly comfortable with Wednesday. At the ministry, they found the after-hours security suspiciously absent, exactly as Voldemort intended. Remember, Harry told the group as they entered the Department of Mysteries, this is a trap. We're expected. But they don't know what we're really after. The department proved as labyrinthine and disorienting as Sirius had described. They passed through rooms containing strange brains in tanks, a fluttering veil on a stone dais that whispered to them, and countless doors that led to more mysteries. In the Hall of Prophecy, they located the orb bearing Harry's name. As his fingers closed around it, shadows materialized around them, Death Eaters, led by Lucius Malfoy. Hand over the prophecy, Potter, Malfoy demanded, silver mask gleaming in the dim light. Why does Voldemort want it? Harry asked, playing his part while subtly positioning himself. As Malfoy explained the prophecy's significance, Wednesday silently released one raven. It flew unnoticed through the labyrinthine shelves, carrying a message to her waiting family. Enough talk, Bellatrix Lestrange hissed, stepping forward. Give us the prophecy or watch your friends die. Harry appeared to hesitate, then suddenly smashed the prophecy at his feet. The ghostly figure that rose from the shards spoke words no one could hear over the chaos that erupted simultaneously. Shelves crashed down as spells flew in every direction. The teenagers scattered according to plan, leading Death Eaters on a chaotic chase through multiple rooms. In the confusion, no one noticed Wednesday slip away with Harry toward the central chamber where the mysterious veil stood. My parents will meet us there, she whispered as they ran. Dumbledore will arrive soon, the order was notified the moment we entered. When they reached the chamber, they found 2 figures already waiting, a tall, cadaverous man in a pinstriped suit and a pale, elegant woman in a form-fitting black dress. Mother, Father, Wednesday greeted them. Your timing is impeccable. Wednesday, darling, her mother glided forward with supernatural grace. Your first governmental overthrow. I'm so proud. Her father checked his pocket watch. 3 minutes until the order arrives. 2 minutes after that for Dumbledore. The ritual requires precisely 60 seconds. Harry stared at the Adams parents with fascination and slight terror. You're sure this will work? We've successfully extracted spirits from possessed individuals 6 times, Mr. Adams assured him. Though admittedly, never a Horcrux from a living host. The principle is sound, Mrs. Adams added, producing a small ornate dagger. We need just a drop of your blood, Harry dear. As Harry extended his hand, chaos erupted around them. Death Eaters and Order members poured into the chamber, spells flying in all directions. Through the confusion, Wednesday deployed her final play, releasing the modified pensive her parents had smuggled in. The device activated with a pulse of dark energy, projecting enormous spectral images above the battle. Suddenly, Everyone could see Dumbledore's memories playing in vivid detail, his cold calculation regarding Harry's placement with abusive relatives, his deliberate tests throughout Harry's school years, and most damning, his explicit statement to Snape, "The boy must die, and Voldemort himself must do it." The fighting faltered as both sides stared in shock at the revelations. Order members looked confused, then horrified. Death Eaters appeared equally stunned. Into this moment of perfect chaos stepped Albus Dumbledore himself, arriving exactly as predicted. His entrance, normally commanding respect and attention, instead met stunned silence and accusing stares. "Harry," he said quietly, eyes finding him across the chamber. "What have you done?" "Not him," Wednesday stepped forward. "Me. I showed them the truth you've been hiding." More memories played above, Dumbledore discussing Harry's inevitable sacrifice, the necessity of keeping him in the dark, the careful manipulation of his life toward one purpose, dying at the right moment. Dumbledore's face showed genuine emotion for once, not remorse, but anger. "You cannot understand the complexities, we understand perfectly," Mrs. Adams interrupted, her voice carrying effortlessly. "You've groomed a child for slaughter while pretending to be his protector." Members of the Order looked between Dumbledore and the memories in growing horror. Tonks lowered her wand, face pale. Kingsley Shacklebolt stared at Dumbledore with dawning comprehension. "Is it true, Albus?" he asked. "You planned for Potter to die all along?" "There was no other way," Dumbledore began, "but the damage was done." Even the Death Eaters seemed affected. Lucius Malfoy's aristocratic features displayed genuine shock behind his half-dislodged mask. Whatever they had expected from this trap, witnessing Dumbledore's calculated sacrifice of the boy who lived wasn't it. As the implications rippled through both sides, Wednesday nodded to her parents. Mr. Adams raised an ancient bone whistle to his lips and blew a silent note. The veil behind them rippled violently. "Now, Harry." Mrs. Adams called, pressing the dagger into his palm. Harry sliced his palm, letting blood drip onto the stone floor as the Adamses began a guttural chant. The ritual had begun, not the complete Horcrux removal they'd researched, but a temporary containment that would buy them time and protect Harry from both Dumbledore and Voldemort. The chamber descended into renewed chaos as both sides processed what was happening. Dumbledore moved toward Harry with surprising speed for an elderly man, but found his path blocked by Wednesday's parents. "This child is under the protection of the House of Adams," Mr. Adams declared formally. "Interfere at your peril." Meanwhile, Death Eaters regrouped, sensing opportunity in the confusion. Bellatrix aimed her wand at Harry, but before she could cast, a new figure appeared in the chamber, Voldemort himself, drawn by the commotion and the public exposure of Dumbledore's plans. His serpentine face registered surprise as he surveyed the scene, the projected memories still playing above, the half-completed ritual, and the scattered combatants frozen in shock. "So," he said softly, red eyes finding Harry, "Dumbledore has been raising you as a sacrifice." "How disappointing." Dumbledore turned to face his former student. "Tom. This doesn't concern you. A piece of my soul embedded in Potter doesn't concern me." Voldemort laughed coldly. "I think it concerns me greatly." The revelation that Voldemort now knew about the Horcrux connection sent fresh shock waves through the chamber. Order members who hadn't fully understood the projected memories now grasped the horrible truth. "You've lied to us all," Moody growled at Dumbledore, magical eyes spinning wildly. "The boy, the Order, the entire wizarding world. Everything I've done has been to defeat Voldemort," Dumbledore insisted. "By sacrificing a child without his knowledge or consent," Wednesday countered. "There are alternatives you never explored because Harry's death fit your strategy." As accusations flew, reporters from the Daily Prophet arrived, drawn by anonymous tips about unusual activity at the ministry. Rita Skeeter pushed her way to the front, quick quotes Quill already scribbling furiously as she took in the scene. "Prophet exclusive," she crowed. "Dumbledore's ultimate betrayal, boy who lived groomed for death." The ritual reached its crescendo as Harry felt something dark and cold shift within his scar. Not completely removed, but contained, isolated from his core self. The pain that had been his constant companion diminished noticeably. "It's working," he gasped to Wednesday. "I can feel the difference." Wednesday nodded, eyes never leaving Dumbledore. "This is only temporary. The full ritual requires preparation we couldn't complete here." Voldemort, sensing the change in the Horcrux connection, moved with blinding speed toward Harry. Dumbledore intercepted him, and their legendary duel began, but this time, the context had changed dramatically. Everyone watching knew Dumbledore fought not just to protect Harry, but to preserve his status as a sacrifice. As spells of incredible power crashed between the two wizards, Wednesday and her parents completed their containment ritual. Harry felt a strange lightness, as though a weight he'd carried so long he'd forgotten it was there had been partially lifted. "We need to leave," Mr. Adams announced. "The ritual's energy will draw attention from forces beyond the Ministry's usual concerns." On cue, the stone floor began to crack as dark energy pulsed from the veil. The duel between Dumbledore and Voldemort intensified, destroying portions of the chamber and forcing others to seek cover. Wednesday grabbed Harry's arm. "My parents have created an exit route. We need to move now." "What about the others?" Harry asked, looking for his friends. "Already evacuated through our backup plan," she assured him. Sirius and Remus extracted them during the confusion. As they moved toward an obscure side door, Dumbledore spotted them. For a brief moment, his eyes met Harry's across the chamber, and Harry saw something he'd never seen before in those blue depths: desperation. "Harry, you don't understand what you're doing," Dumbledore called, narrowly dodging one of Voldemort's curses. "The prophecy says I must kill him or be killed by him," Harry called back. "Not that I have to die." "You added that part yourself." The exchange was captured by Rita's Quill and several other journalists who had arrived. As Harry and Wednesday slipped through the exit with the elder Adamses, the last thing they saw was flashbulbs going off as photographers captured the chaotic scene for tomorrow's papers. They emerged into an unfamiliar part of London through what appeared to be an ancient mausoleum. Mr. and Mrs. Adams led them quickly through winding streets until they reached a nondescript building. "International Portkey Station, Mr. Adams explained, producing papers. "Registered under false identities, of course. Standard Adams travel procedure." "Where are we going?" Harry asked, still processing everything that had happened. "Our ancestral estate in the Carpathian Mountains," Mrs. Adams replied. "Where we can complete the full ritual away from British magical jurisdiction." "The others will meet us there," Wednesday assured him. "The connection between Ron's mirror and mine remains active. They're safely at a Black family property under Fidelius." Harry hesitated. "What happens now?" "To the wizarding world, I mean." Wednesday's dark eyes gleamed with something almost like satisfaction. "Chaos. Revolution. Truth. By morning, every wizard and witch in Britain will know Dumbledore planned to sacrifice you while pretending to be your protector. And that makes you happy?" "Exposure of manipulation always pleases me," she admitted. "But more importantly, it gives you choices you were never meant to have." As they activated their portkey, Harry caught a glimpse of the early edition of the Daily Prophet already being distributed. The headline screamed, "Boy who lived to die, Dumbledore's ultimate betrayal." The next morning, the wizarding world erupted. Every newspaper carried variations of the same story, complete with magical photographs showing the projected memories and Dumbledore's damning words. The Daily Prophet special edition sold out within hours. Dumbledore groomed Potter as sacrifice, chosen one raised like pig for slaughter. Order members demand answers. Ministry in chaos after Department of Mysteries battle. At Hogwarts, students gathered in shocked clusters, discussing the revelations. The Gryffindor table sat largely empty, Harry, Ron, and Hermione's absence now understood in a disturbing new light. Luna Lovegood calmly distributed copies of the Quibbler, which featured a special edition titled, "The Truth Behind the Twinkle," Dumbledore's Decades of Deception, with surprisingly well-researched articles about past instances of Dumbledore's manipulations. In the staff room, professors argued heatedly. McGonagall sat white-faced and silent, a letter of resignation already drafted before her. Flitwick paced agitatedly, recounting instances where Dumbledore had overruled his concerns about Harry's welfare. Snape had not been seen since the Department of Mysteries incident. By afternoon, protests had formed in Diagon Alley and outside the Ministry of Magic. Parents flooded Hogwarts demanding answers about their children's safety under Dumbledore's leadership. The Board of Governors called an emergency meeting. At the Ministry, Cornelius Fudge attempted to capitalize on Dumbledore's downfall while simultaneously distancing himself from the revelation that Voldemort had indeed returned. His press conference degenerated into chaos when journalists demanded to know why the Ministry had persecuted Harry Potter rather than protecting him. Across Britain, Wizard wireless networks broadcast special reports and debated the implications. The revelation of Horcruxes, previously known only to the darkest magical scholars, created fresh waves of fear about Voldemort's potential immortality. By evening, riots had broken out in Hogsmeade when Dumbledore attempted to return to Hogwarts. Angry crowds blocked his path, demanding explanations for his willingness to sacrifice a child. Even members of the Order of the Phoenix stood among the protesters, their faith shattered by the revealed memories. Far away in the Carpathian Mountains, Harry sat before a roaring fire in the ancient Addams family castle. The massive stone structure, with its gargoyles and perpetual lightning storms, would have terrified him weeks earlier. Now it felt like a sanctuary. Ron and Hermione had arrived safely, along with Sirius and Remus. They gathered in the cavernous library, surrounded by grimoires and artifacts that would have sent ministry officials into conniptions. "It's madness back home," Sirius reported, having just returned from a covert check-in with Tonks. "The wizarding world is imploding. Half the Order has publicly denounced Dumbledore." "And Voldemort?" Harry asked. "Staying quiet for now," Remus said. "Too smart to interrupt while his enemies tear themselves apart." Hermione looked up from an ancient text she'd been studying with Mrs. Addams. "We've nearly completed the ritual preparations. 3 more days until the correct lunar alignment." Harry nodded, absently touching his scar. The containment ritual had reduced his connection to Voldemort to a dull background hum rather than the sharp intrusions he'd experienced before. He still carried the Horcrux, but it no longer had the same hold on him. "And you're sure this will work?" he asked Mrs. Addams. "As sure as one can be when extracting a fragment of the darkest wizard's soul," she replied with disturbing cheerfulness. "The procedure has a 70% success rate in our family records." "And the other 30%? Ron asked nervously. "Spectacular failures that have become family legends," Mr. Addams said proudly. "Great-Uncle Vlad's attempt in 1767 created a localized time reversal that aged him backward into infancy." Hermione blanched. "That won't happen to Harry, will it?" "Unlikely," Wednesday said from where she sat sharpening a ceremonial dagger. "We've accounted for the variables that caused previous incidents." Harry watched Wednesday with a mixture of gratitude and lingering wariness. Her intervention had saved him from Dumbledore's manipulations, but her methods were nearly as calculating, just with his survival as a priority rather than his sacrifice. "Why did you help me?" he asked her quietly while the others continued researching. "The truth this time." Wednesday paused her methodical sharpening. "Initially, intellectual curiosity. The manipulation was so elegant I found it offensive." She tested the dagger's edge with her thumb, drawing a bead of blood without flinching. "Then I recognized something familiar." "What?" "Someone who'd been told their destiny was predetermined. My family has fought prophecies for generations." She wiped the blade clean. "The fortune-teller who predicted my death at age 16 learned that fate is malleable if you're willing to seize control of it." Harry understood then, Wednesday's help wasn't just clinical intervention but something more personal. Behind her emotionless facade lay a deep rejection of predetermined paths and manipulated choices. "Thank you," he said simply. She nodded once, returning to her work without further comment. Across the room, Ron looked up from a letter he'd been reading. "My dad says Percy's organizing a protest at the ministry. Percy, of all people, says he can't support an administration that allowed a child to be groomed for sacrifice. The wizarding world is experiencing collective trauma," Remus observed. "Finding out their legendary leader planned to sacrifice their teenage hero has shattered public trust. Which creates an opportunity," Sirius added, spreading out a map of Britain marked with strange symbols. "While everyone's focused on Dumbledore's betrayal, we can move against the Horcruxes he was hunting." Harry leaned forward. "You found them?" "Some," Sirius tapped locations on the map. "The Black family has connections that Dumbledore lacked. My dear cousin Bellatrix was entrusted with one, likely in her Gringotts vault. Another appears to be at Hogwarts," Remus added. "Based on Dumbledore's notes that Minerva sent us." "And the others?" "Still searching," Sirius admitted. "But with the resources of the Black family and the Adamses combined, we're making progress." Harry felt something he hadn't experienced in months, genuine hope. Not the forced optimism Dumbledore had cultivated in him, but real possibility based on concrete action. "So we have a plan," he said. "Remove my Horcrux, find and destroy the others, then deal with Voldemort directly. While the wizarding world tears itself apart over Dumbledore's betrayal," Wednesday added. "Creating space for us to work without either side's interference." Harry nodded, resolve hardening. "Then let's get started." 3 days later, under a blood moon that hung ominously over the Carpathian peaks, they prepared for the ritual. The Addams family crypt had been arranged with ancient symbols drawn in substances Harry preferred not to identify. At the center stood a stone altar where he would lie during the procedure. "Last chance to reconsider," Wednesday told him as she helped prepare the ritual components. "This will be excruciating. The soul fragment will fight extraction." "Pain is nothing new," Harry replied, removing his shirt. "And carrying a piece of Voldemort has been excruciating in ways that aren't physical." Hermione hugged him fiercely before moving to her position. She, along with Ron, would maintain the protective circle while the Adamses performed the actual extraction. Sirius and Remus stood guard outside, ensuring no interruptions. "Ready, dear?" Mrs. Adams asked, looking positively delighted at the prospect of dangerous ritual magic. Harry lay down on the cold stone. "Ready." The ritual began with Mr. Adams lighting black candles placed at specific points around the chamber. Mrs. Adams began a low, guttural chant in a language Harry didn't recognize but felt in his bones. Wednesday moved around the altar, painting symbols on his chest and forehead using a mixture containing his own blood and other components. As the chanting intensified, Harry felt the Horcrux stir within his scar, as though awakening to the threat. Pain blossomed across his forehead, quickly intensifying from discomfort to agony. Outside the ritual chamber, a storm gathered over the castle, lightning striking the ancient towers in rapid succession. The magical energies being channeled created atmospheric disturbances that reflected the supernatural battle taking place within. "Hold him steady," Wednesday instructed as Harry began to convulse. "The fragment senses our intent." Harry felt as though his skull was being split open. Worse than any cruciatus curse, the pain radiated from his scar throughout his entire body. Through blurred vision, he saw Wednesday raise the ceremonial dagger, its blade now glowing with eldritch light. "Now!" Mr. Adams called as the chanting reached its peak. Wednesday brought the dagger down, not to cut Harry, but to hover precisely 1 inch above his scar. The blade acted as a conduit, drawing something dark and viscous from the lightning-shaped mark. Harry screamed as he felt a tearing sensation, as though something that had been interwoven with his very being was being forcibly separated. The chamber filled with an unholy shriek that came not from Harry but from the extracted fragment itself. A black mist coalesced above the dagger, writhing and struggling against the ritual's pull. The receptacle. Mrs. Adams called. Ron, following his instructions precisely, rolled a small obsidian orb into the center of the circle. Wednesday directed the daggers pulled toward it, guiding the screaming shadow into the waiting container. The moment the last tendril of darkness touched the orb, Mr. Adams brought down a silver hammer, sealing the vessel with a pulse of magic that knocked everyone backward. Harry gasped, feeling as though he could truly breathe for the first time in his life. The constant pressure, the background noise he'd never recognized because it had always been there, was gone. His mind felt clearer, lighter, entirely his own. Did it work? Hermione asked anxiously, helping him sit up. Wednesday examined his scar, which had stopped bleeding and already looked less inflamed. The extraction appears complete. She performed several detection charms. No traces of external soul magic remain. Harry touched his forehead in wonder. I feel different. Like I've been wearing someone else's glasses all my life and just got the right prescription. Mr. Adams carefully sealed the obsidian orb in a lead box inscribed with containment runes. 1 Horcrux secured. Several more to go. As Harry recovered from the ritual, Mrs. Adams brought him a steaming mug. Drink this. Family recipe for post-soul extraction recovery. Harry eyed the bubbling black liquid suspiciously. Will it kill me? Only partially, she assured him with a serene smile. The sensation fades after the first few minutes. Despite his better judgment, Harry drank. The concoction burned going down but left clarity and renewed energy in its wake. By morning, he felt stronger than he had in years, perhaps ever. News from Britain arrived daily, each report more chaotic than the last. The wizarding world remained in turmoil, with Dumbledore's reputation in tatters. He had retreated to an undisclosed location after multiple attempts to explain his greater good philosophy had been met with public outrage. The ministry teetered on the brink of collapse as various factions fought for control. Fudge had been ousted in a vote of no confidence, but no clear successor had emerged. Some pushed for Amelia Bones to take temporary control, while others suggested a complete restructuring of magical government. Meanwhile, Voldemort exploited the chaos with strategic attacks on key locations. Diagon Alley had been hit twice, and several prominent families who had spoken out against both Dumbledore and Death Eaters found their homes targeted. We need to go back, Harry announced 1 week after his successful Horcrux removal. People are dying while we hide. Not hiding, Wednesday corrected. Preparing. There's a difference. She's right, Harry, Sirius agreed. We've identified 3 more Horcruxes. We have a plan to retrieve them. Rushing back without completing our mission would waste the advantage we've gained. Harry paced the library restlessly. But the longer we wait, the more Voldemort consolidates power. He's using the chaos we created. As we anticipated he would, Wednesday pointed out. His actions are predictable. That makes him vulnerable. Their debate was interrupted by the arrival of an unfamiliar owl bearing an official-looking letter. Hermione checked it thoroughly for curses before opening it. It's from Professor McGonagall, she announced. She's been named acting headmistress pending investigation into Dumbledore's actions. She's requesting our return to Hogwarts under her personal guarantee of safety. Suspicious timing, Wednesday noted. The castle likely contains a Horcrux. This could be a trap. Not from McGonagall, Harry shook his head. She was just as betrayed by Dumbledore as the rest of us. Her protection offer is genuine. Even so, Sirius cautioned, returning to Britain means facing both ministry chaos and Voldemort's increased activity. Not to mention public reaction to your reappearance. Harry considered this. His Horcrux removal remained secret, a tactical advantage they'd kept hidden. To Voldemort, he would still appear to be carrying a soul fragment, which might influence the Dark Lord's approach. I think it's time, he said finally. Not just to retrieve the Horcrux at Hogwarts, but to show the wizarding world there's an alternative to both Dumbledore's manipulation and Voldemort's terror. Wednesday studied him with new respect. You're suggesting we present a third path? Exactly. Right now, everyone's choosing sides in a false binary. We know there's another way forward. Harry turned to the others. Britain needs stability, but not at the cost of truth or freedom. We can offer that. Hermione looked thoughtful. A student-led resistance, independent from both Dumbledore and the Ministry. With the support of reformers like Amelia Bones and allies like the Adamses, Ron added, warming to the idea. It's strategically sound, Wednesday acknowledged. Return publicly, rally support, while covertly hunting the remaining Horcruxes. Harry nodded firmly. Then it's decided. We go back, but on our terms, not theirs. As they began preparations for their return, Harry pulled Wednesday aside. Thank you. Not just for removing the Horcrux, but for showing me I had options beyond what Dumbledore planned. Wednesday regarded him with her usual impassive expression, though something like approval flickered in her dark eyes. The most insidious prison is one where you cannot see the bars. You deserved the chance to choose your own fate. Together they rejoined the others, finalizing plans for their return to a wizarding world forever changed by Wednesday's revelation and the revolution it had sparked. Chapter 3, Revolution and Reclamation. The night bus screeched to a halt outside Hogwarts gates on a stormy April evening, sending gravel flying in all directions. Stan Shunpike stared open-mouthed as Harry Potter stepped off, followed by Hermione Granger, Ron Weasley, and a pale girl with braided black hair whose unblinking gaze made him shiver. Blimey, it's really you, Stan breathed. Everyone's been wondering where you disappeared to after. Keep it to yourself for an hour, Harry said, pressing a handful of galleons into the conductor's palm. Just long enough for us to get inside. Stan pocketed the gold with a wink. Didn't see nothin', did I, Ern? The ancient driver grunted agreement as the bus vanished with another bang, leaving the four students facing the winged boar statues that flanked Hogwarts' entrance. Ready? Harry asked, looking at his companions. Wednesday's expression remained neutral. The real question is whether they're ready for us. Rain pattered against their cloaks as they approached the gates. Harry had expected resistance, perhaps even Auror Station to intercept them. Instead, Professor McGonagall herself waited, her tall figure unmistakable despite the growing darkness. Potter, she said as they drew near, voice brisk but with an undercurrent of relief. Miss Granger, Mr. Weasley. And Miss Adams, I presume? Wednesday inclined her head slightly. Acting headmistress. McGonagall's lips thinned at the title. Yes, well. Given recent revelations, certain changes were inevitable. She waved her wand, and the gates swung open. Come. Quickly. Your return won't remain secret for long. As they followed her up the path toward the castle, Harry noticed subtle differences in Hogwarts' appearance. The usual warm glow from its windows seemed dimmer. Patches of the ground showed scorch marks from what looked like magical combat. There have been incidents, McGonagall explained, following his gaze. Not everyone reacted, rationally to the news about Albus. You mean they rioted, Wednesday stated. McGonagall's shoulders stiffened. Some students attempted to storm the headmaster's office. Others declared they were joining the Death Eaters, as they'd been lied to by the light. It's been challenging. And Dumbledore? Harry asked, surprised by how steady his voice sounded when speaking the name. Gone, McGonagall said shortly. He left the night after the Department of Mysteries. His official statement claimed he was pursuing alternative methods to defeat you-know-who without further casualties. Convenient, Wednesday murmured. They entered the castle through a side entrance, avoiding the great hall where dinner was underway. McGonagall led them through back corridors to her office, formerly her transfiguration classroom, not Dumbledore's tower. I've refused to occupy the headmaster's office, she explained, seeing their questioning looks. Until the Board of Governors completes their investigation, I consider my position temporary. Once inside, with privacy charms established, McGonagall's professional demeanor cracked slightly. She looked at Harry with genuine anguish. "Potter, Harry, I want you to know I had no idea of Albus's plan for you. None whatsoever." Her voice wavered. "Had I known, I believe you, Professor," Harry said quietly. "You're not the only one he kept in the dark." McGonagall composed herself with visible effort. "Your letter said you've made progress against you-know-who while away. That you have a plan requiring access to Hogwarts." "We do," Hermione confirmed. "But first, what's the current situation? The Daily Prophet's been unreliable, and international wizarding news only covers the biggest developments." McGonagall gestured for them to sit. "Britain is in crisis. The ministry remains functional but deeply fractured. Scrimgeour has been named acting minister, but his authority is contested by multiple factions. The Wisingamot has suspended regular sessions after 3 members were hospitalized during a duel on the chamber floor." "And Voldemort?" Harry asked. McGonagall flinched at the name but answered steadily. "Taking advantage of the chaos. Targeted attacks, strategic kidnappings of ministry officials. The Giants have joined him. Dementors abandoned Azkaban last week. As expected," Wednesday noted. "Institutional collapse creates opportunity for those positioned to exploit it." Meanwhile, McGonagall continued, public opinion has fragmented. Many who once supported Dumbledore feel betrayed beyond redemption. Others claim the memories were fabricated. A third group acknowledges his methods were unconscionable but fear losing his strategic leadership against the Death Eaters. "And Hogwarts?" Ron asked. "What about our classmates?" McGonagall's expression grew pained. "Divided along similar lines. Some students have been withdrawn by their parents. Others have formed factions. The DA members have continued meeting, unofficially, with my knowledge but not explicit approval." "Led by who?" Harry asked, curious. "Miss Lovegood," surprisingly, McGonagall said with a hint of incredulity. "With support from Mr. Longbottom and your sister, Mr. Weasley. They've maintained order among students better than many professors." Harry exchanged glances with Wednesday, whose subtle nod confirmed his suspicion that Luna had been acting as their advance agent within Hogwarts. "Now," McGonagall said, fixing them with her no-nonsense stare, "why exactly have you returned? And where have you been?" Harry chose his words carefully. "We've discovered how Voldemort survived when the killing curse rebounded. He created magical anchors called Horcruxes, objects containing pieces of his soul." McGonagall paled. "Horcruxes? Plural?" "6 intentional ones," Hermione confirmed. "Plus Harry, who was an accidental 7th. Was?" McGonagall's eyes widened. "You mean, it's gone," Harry confirmed, pushing back his fringe to show his scar, now faded to a thin white line rather than the inflamed mark it had been for years. "We found a way to remove it without killing me, something Dumbledore apparently never bothered researching." McGonagall slumped slightly in her chair. "Merlin's mercy. We've destroyed 2 Horcruxes so far," Ron continued. "The diary from second year, and the soul piece from Harry. We believe another is hidden here at Hogwarts. We need access to the Room of Hidden Things," Wednesday added. "Our research suggests Voldemort concealed something significant during a job interview with Dumbledore years ago." McGonagall stared at them for a long moment. "You've accomplished more against you-know-who in a few weeks than the Order has in months." Her gaze sharpened. "What else aren't you telling me?" Harry smiled grimly. "Quite a bit, Professor. But we're being selective with information for everyone's safety. Dumbledore's need-to-know approach was manipulative, but compartmentalization itself has tactical value." A reluctant smile tugged at McGonagall's lips. "You've changed, Potter." "Nearly dying repeatedly does that to people," Harry replied without humor. "Especially when you discover it was by design." McGonagall nodded slowly. You'll have whatever access you need. But I want your word you'll keep me informed of developments that affect student safety. Agreed, Harry said. And in return, we need something from you. Yes. Call a school assembly for tomorrow morning. It's time the wizarding world saw that there's a third option beyond Dumbledore and Voldemort. Word of Harry Potter's return spread through Hogwarts like wildfire by breakfast. The great hall buzzed with speculation as students packed in, craning for glimpses of the boy whose planned sacrifice had triggered a national crisis. When he entered alongside Ron, Hermione, and Wednesday, conversations died instantly, leaving uncomfortable silence. Harry walked calmly to the front, where McGonagall waited at the podium. The staff table behind her showed several empty seats, including Dumbledore's ornate chair, which had been physically removed. Students of Hogwarts, McGonagall began. As you've no doubt heard, Mr. Potter and his friends have returned. Given recent events and ongoing concerns about you-know-whose activities, Mr. Potter has asked to address you directly. She stepped aside, allowing Harry to take her place. He surveyed the room, noting the clear divisions among students. Slytherin table sat nearly half empty, its remaining members looking simultaneously defensive and defiant. Gryffindors appeared split between those watching him with hero worship and others with suspicious uncertainty. Ravenclaws leaned forward analytically, while Hufflepuffs showed a unified front of cautious support. I'm not going to pretend the last few weeks have been easy for any of us, Harry began, his voice carrying without magical amplification. You all learned that Dumbledore, someone we trusted, planned my death as part of his strategy against Voldemort. Flinches rippled through the crowd at the name, but Harry continued undeterred. Some of you think I betrayed the light by exposing this plan. Others believe Dumbledore betrayed me. The truth is, we've all been caught in a false choice between two manipulative leaders who view people as pieces on a chessboard. He gestured to his friends. While away, we've discovered critical information about Voldemort's survival methods and developed countermeasures that don't require anyone's sacrifice. Excited whispers broke out. Harry raised a hand for quiet. I'm not asking you to follow me instead. I'm suggesting something more radical, that we reject the model where one powerful figure makes decisions for everyone else. His green eyes swept across the hall. Dumbledore kept secrets that endangered us all. Voldemort demands blind obedience. The Ministry changes positions with political wins. None of them deserve your unquestioning loyalty. Luna Lovegood stood from the Ravenclaw table. What are you proposing instead, Harry? A network, not a hierarchy, Harry replied. Dumbledore's army showed us students from different houses could learn together, protect each other. We need to expand that model beyond Hogwarts. Resistance Network, Wednesday suggested, speaking publicly for the first time. Many students startled at her flat American accent. Operating cells sharing information but maintaining independent decision-making capacity. No single point of failure. Hermione stepped forward. We've prepared communications methods similar to the DA coins but more secure. Anyone wishing to join will undergo verification to prevent infiltration. And what about you-know-who, called a sixth-year Hufflepuff? How does this network stop him? By targeting what makes him powerful, Harry answered. His followers, his resources, and the magical anchors keeping him immortal. We've already destroyed two. With coordinated effort, we can eliminate the others within weeks, not years. Why should we trust you? Zacharias Smith demanded. You disappeared when everything fell apart. To find solutions Dumbledore claimed didn't exist, Harry replied evenly. I'm not asking for blind trust. I'm offering verifiable results and transparent methods. Harry removed Voldemort's soul fragment from his scar without dying, Ron announced bluntly. Something Dumbledore said was impossible. Gasps echoed through the hall. Harry pushed back his hair, revealing the faded scar. Many students stood for a better view, pointing and whispering. This isn't about me, Harry continued once the commotion settled. It's about all of us rejecting the idea that we're powerless without a singular leader. Dumbledore kept secrets that nearly got me killed. Voldemort demands fear and obedience. We're offering something different, collective action based on shared information and mutual support. McGonagall stepped forward again. Those interested in Mr. Potter's proposal may attend an informational meeting this evening. Classes will proceed as scheduled today. Heads of houses will be available to address concerns. As students filed out, buzzing with renewed energy and purpose, Wednesday joined Harry. Effective speech. You've given them agency without promising easy victory. Learn from watching Dumbledore's mistakes, Harry replied quietly. False hope is just another form of manipulation. Luna drifted over, smiling dreamily. The Raxburts around everyone have changed color. They're purpose purple now instead of confusion crimson. Wednesday nodded as if this made perfect sense. Clarity of mission reduces cognitive dissonance. Exactly, Luna beamed. I've maintained the DA as you requested. 37 active members, including 5 Slytherins who joined after the revelation. Perfect, Harry said. We'll need them for tonight's operation. The room of requirement transformed itself into a vast cathedral-like space filled with centuries of hidden objects. Harry, Wednesday, Hermione, and Ron picked their way through towering piles of contraband, forgotten treasures, and broken furniture. Ravenclaw's diadem, Hermione reminded them, consulting her notes. According to the Grey Lady, it should emit a magical signature similar to the diary and the, well, Harry's scar. Wednesday held up a detection device resembling a cross between a compass and a music box, an Addams family heirloom sent by her parents. Soul fragments resonate at specific frequencies. This will guide us. The device emitted discordant notes as Wednesday slowly turned in place. When pointed toward the back of the room, the sounds aligned into an eerie melody. There, she indicated, moving purposefully between cluttered aisles. They followed the sound to a tarnished tiara resting atop a damaged vanishing cabinet. Harry immediately felt the familiar dark energy radiating from it, similar to the diary, but with a colder, more calculating malevolence. That's it, he confirmed. I can feel it. Wednesday produced a lead box inscribed with containment runes. No one touch it directly. Soul fragments can attempt possession when threatened. Using levitation charms, they carefully maneuvered the diadem into the container. The moment the lid sealed, Harry felt the oppressive aura vanish. 3 down, Ron said with grim satisfaction. 3 to go, plus Voldemort himself, Hermione corrected. Hufflepuff's cup in the Lestrange vault, the Gaunt family ring, and Slytherin's locket. The ring is destroyed, came a voice from behind them. Though at considerable cost. They spun to find Albus Dumbledore standing between piles of discarded objects, his withered right hand confirming his statement. The blackened, shriveled appendage looked barely functional. Harry's wand was in his hand before he consciously drew it. How did you find us? I built the additional protections into this room myself, Dumbledore replied calmly. They alert me when dark artifacts are disturbed. Convenient backdoor, Wednesday observed coldly. Typical. Dumbledore regarded her with thinly veiled dislike. Miss Addams. Your family's interference has created complications that could cost countless lives. Your plan would have definitely cost Harry's life, she countered. The math favors our approach. You cannot comprehend, we comprehend perfectly, Harry interrupted, stepping forward. You decided my death was necessary without exploring alternatives. Without telling me. Without giving me a choice. Dumbledore's blue eyes had lost their twinkle. The prophecy said I had the power to vanquish him, not that I had to die doing it, Harry snapped. We've already removed his soul fragment from me without destroying the vessel. Your entire premise was flawed. For perhaps the first time in his life, Dumbledore looked genuinely shocked. You removed the Horcrux. How? Ancient family ritual, Wednesday answered vaguely. Something you might have discovered had you consulted sources beyond British magical tradition. Dumbledore's gaze fixed on Harry's scar, now a faint white line. May I verify? Harry hesitated, then nodded once. Dumbledore raised his functioning hand, performing intricate diagnostic charms. His expression shifted from skepticism to astonishment. Extraordinary, he murmured. The connection is truly severed. He lowered his hand slowly. I underestimated the possibilities. You underestimated a lot of things, Ron said bluntly. Including what happens when you treat people like disposable weapons. Dumbledore suddenly looked every bit his advanced age. I never wanted, save it, Harry cut him off. Your intentions don't change what you did. You raised me for slaughter while pretending to care about me. I did care, Dumbledore insisted. That's why the plan was so painful to implement. If you truly cared, Hermione said quietly, you would have told him the truth and worked together to find alternatives. A heavy silence fell. Dumbledore seemed to deflate further, his customary authority absent in the face of their unified rejection. What happens now? He finally asked. We destroy the remaining Horcruxes, Harry said firmly. Without you. You've lost the right to lead this fight. The Order is falling apart without you, Ron interrupted. Half of them joined our network after learning what you planned for Harry. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. Your network? A decentralized resistance, Wednesday explained with cold precision. No single leader to kill or compromise. Cell-based organization with distributed information flow. Fascinating approach, Dumbledore acknowledged. Though perhaps idealistic. Unlike raising children as sacrificial lambs, Harry retorted. We'll take our chances with idealism. Dumbledore regarded them silently for a long moment. You have matured beyond what I anticipated, Harry. Perhaps. He hesitated. Perhaps I can provide information about the remaining Horcruxes without assuming control. Harry exchanged glances with his friends before nodding cautiously. Information only. And verified before we act on it. Of course, Dumbledore agreed. The locket, for instance, is no longer where I believed it to be. It was stolen years ago by Regulus Black and replaced with a fake. Hermione gasped. R.A.B., Regulus Arcturus Black. Indeed, Dumbledore confirmed. I discovered this shortly before recent events. We'll check Grimmauld Place, Harry decided. Sirius might know something. Wednesday studied Dumbledore with narrowed eyes. Your hand. The ring Horcrux cursed you. Dumbledore glanced at his withered appendage. Yes. A particularly vicious curse. Professor Snape has contained it temporarily, but it will eventually spread. How long? Harry asked, surprised by the genuine concern he still felt despite everything. A year at most, Dumbledore admitted. Hence the accelerated timeline for your confrontation with Voldemort. The revelation hung in the air, Dumbledore was dying. His plan for Harry had been partially motivated by his own limited remaining time. Still doesn't justify not telling me, Harry said finally. No, Dumbledore agreed softly. It doesn't. He straightened slightly. I will provide what information I have about the remaining Horcruxes to Professor McGonagall for your network. After that, I shall remove myself from Britain for a time. My presence currently does more harm than good to those opposing Voldemort. He turned to leave, then paused. For whatever it's worth, Harry, I am sorry. Not for trying to defeat Voldemort, but for not trusting you with the truth. It seems in my fear of burdening you, I created a far greater injustice. Harry said nothing, his emotions too complex to articulate. Wednesday spoke instead, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. The true test of wisdom is recognizing when your own judgment has failed. Perhaps you've finally learned something valuable, Headmaster. Dumbledore inclined his head slightly before disappearing between the towering piles of hidden things, leaving them with the contained Horcrux and the weight of unresolved feelings. Well, Ron broke the silence. That was necessary. Wednesday finished. Closure requires confrontation. Harry nodded slowly. Let's destroy this thing and contact Sirius about the locket. We're making progress. That evening, the Great Hall transformed into headquarters for what students had already dubbed the Revolution. Over 200 people packed the room, not just current students but recent graduates, parents, and even several Aurors who had taken leave from the ministry. Luna had decorated with radish garlands that supposedly repelled manipulation energies, while Neville organized seating to deliberately mix houses and age groups. Fred and George Weasley had returned to Hogwarts specifically for the gathering, bringing communication devices they'd been developing. Harry watched from a side chamber as the crowd grew, feeling a mixture of hope and trepidation. Wednesday appeared beside him, observing the scene with her usual analytical detachment. Having second thoughts, she asked. Not about rejecting Dumbledore's plan, Harry clarified. But about leading all these people. I'm not sure I'm qualified. You're not leading them, Wednesday corrected. You're connecting them. There's a difference. Still feels like a lot of responsibility. Wednesday considered this. My great-grandmother once said, power without accountability is tyranny. Accountability without power is victimhood. The balance between them is leadership. Was this before or after she poisoned the local magistrate? Harry asked with a hint of humor. During, actually. The poison was slow-acting. Wednesday's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. She believed in providing moral lessons along with retribution. Harry laughed despite himself. His relationship with Wednesday had evolved into something he couldn't quite define, not exactly friendship in the traditional sense, but a deep mutual respect built on shared purpose and complementary strengths. Hermione joined them, clipboard in hand. We're ready whenever you are. I've organized breakout groups for different focus areas: communications, intelligence gathering, defensive training, Horcrux hunting. Harry nodded, squaring his shoulders. Let's do this. They walked out together to enthusiastic applause. Harry raised his hands for quiet, the noise gradually subsiding. Thank you all for coming, he began. What we're creating tonight isn't an army or an organization, it's a network of people who refuse to be manipulated by either side in this war. He explained the cell structure they developed, small groups with specific functions, connected through secure communications but operating independently enough that no single compromise could collapse the entire network. Everyone here has skills, knowledge, or resources valuable to defeating Voldemort, Harry continued, ignoring the collective flinch at the name. Our job is to connect those abilities effectively without creating the same vulnerable hierarchy that Voldemort and Dumbledore both rely on. Hermione stepped forward to explain the enchanted communication devices, galleons with advanced protections developed by the Weasley twins and enhanced by magical theory from Wednesday's family archives. Ron outlined their intelligence on known Death Eaters and potential targets, while Neville surprisingly took charge of explaining evacuation protocols for vulnerable families. When Wednesday's turn came, her deadpan delivery somehow made the gruesome details of Horcruxes more palatable. Soul fragments anchored in objects, she explained clinically. Each must be destroyed beyond magical repair. We've eliminated 3. 3 remain before Voldemort becomes mortal. How do you destroy them? Called a voice from the crowd. Basilisk venom, fiendfire, or specific ritual dissolution, Wednesday answered. We have access to all 3 methods. The meeting continued for hours, breaking into specialized groups with designated coordinators. By midnight, they had established a functional network with clear protocols, secure communication channels, and defined objectives. As people began departing in staggered groups to avoid attention, McGonagall approached Harry. I've received an owl from Dumbledore, she said quietly. As promised, he's provided detailed information about the remaining Horcruxes and potential methods to access the Lestrange Vault at Gringotts. Can we trust it? Harry asked. McGonagall sighed. I've verified what I could. The information appears genuine. He's also formally resigned as headmaster, effective immediately. Where is he going? He didn't specify. Only that he would seek answers in places long forgotten. McGonagall's expression softened slightly. Whatever his failures regarding you, Potter, Albus truly believes Voldemort must be stopped at all costs. So do I, Harry agreed. But not through secret plans and manipulated children. McGonagall nodded grimly. The board has asked me to accept the headmistress position permanently. I've agreed on one condition, that Hogwarts becomes officially neutral territory in this conflict. A sanctuary for all students regardless of their families' affiliations. Harry considered this. Smart. It prevents Voldemort from claiming the school while giving children of Death Eaters an alternative to following their parents. Precisely. McGonagall looked at him with undisguised pride. You've grown remarkably, Potter. Had to, Harry said simply. The alternatives weren't great. The hunt for the remaining Horcruxes accelerated over the following weeks. The locket was found at Grimmauld Place, identified by Creature as the object Master Regulus had sacrificed himself to retrieve. With the house elf's assistance, they destroyed it using a basilisk fong Harry had collected from the Chamber of Secrets. The network expanded rapidly, with cells operating throughout Wizarding Britain. The Daily Prophet reported growing resistance to both Ministry incompetence and Death Eater aggression, though they remained unaware of the organized nature behind seemingly spontaneous acts of defiance. For Horcruxes down, they focused on the most challenging target, Hufflepuff's cup in the Lestrange Vault at Gringotts. Traditional breaking and entering would be nearly impossible, even with their resources. We need leverage, Wednesday observed during a strategy session in the Room of Requirement. Something the goblins want more than their neutrality. The answer came unexpectedly through Bill Weasley, who had joined their network while maintaining his position at Gringotts. The goblins are furious with both sides, he reported via Enchanted Mirror. The Ministry's imposing new regulations that threaten their autonomy, while Death Eaters have killed several clan leaders who refuse to support Voldemort. So they're open to alternatives, Hermione surmised. Bill nodded. Particularly if it involves recovering goblin-made artifacts currently in wizarding possession. Harry thought for a moment. The Sword of Gryffindor. It's goblin-made, and we have access to it through Hogwarts. Excellent bargaining chip, Wednesday agreed. Especially if we offer it as a loan rather than permanent return. Goblins don't recognize the concept of buying goblin-made items, Bill cautioned. To them, objects should return to goblin control after the purchaser's death. Then we negotiate temporary custodianship, Harry decided. The sword in exchange for supervised access to the Lestrange Vault, strictly to remove one item. The plan worked better than anticipated. The goblin leadership, impressed by the unprecedented offer and explanation of Horcruxes, which they considered an abomination against natural magic, agreed not only to retrieve the cup themselves but to provide additional security during its destruction. 5 Horcruxes down, they turned to the final one, Nagini, Voldemort's snake companion. This presented the greatest challenge, as the serpent rarely left Voldemort's side. We need to draw them out, Ron suggested during a secure network meeting. Force Voldemort into the open on our terms. Dangerous, Hermione cautioned. He's been increasing attacks weekly. The Ministry's barely functioning, and half the Wisengamot has fled the country. Wednesday, who had been studying reports from their intelligence cells, looked up suddenly. There's a pattern to his movements. He's systematically eliminating anyone connected to his original downfall, Order members, Ministry officials who opposed him in the First War. He's tying up loose ends, Harry realized. Which means you're his ultimate target, Wednesday confirmed. Once the periphery is eliminated, he'll come for you directly. So we accelerate his timeline, Harry decided. Make me appear vulnerable while actually controlling the circumstances. Wednesday nodded approvingly. Calculated risk with significant tactical advantage. When and where? They deliberated for hours before settling on a plan. Using their network's resources, they would stage an apparent emergency evacuation of Hogwarts, creating the impression that Harry was being moved to a secure location. The resulting transport would present a tempting target while actually leading Voldemort into a prepared ambush site. We'll need to make it convincing, Hermione stressed. Voldemort has spies everywhere. The evacuation must appear genuine. Leave that to us, Fred and George said in unison, their expressions uncharacteristically serious. Their network cell had developed increasingly sophisticated distractions and decoys. The location is crucial, Harry added. Somewhere containing enough ambient magic to mask our preparations, but open enough for maneuverability. Stonehenge, Wednesday suggested immediately. Ancient ley lines provide power and interference. Multiple escape routes. Symbolic significance would appeal to Voldemort's theatrical tendencies. The plan took shape with input from across their network. Former Aurors advised on defensive formations. Cursebreakers identified ways to temporarily enhance the ancient site's protective magic. Members with connections to Muggle authorities arranged for the area to be closed to tourists under the guise of archaeological work. As preparations neared completion, Harry received an unexpected owl, a single phoenix feather and a note in Dumbledore's handwriting. When the moment comes, remember that what makes you different from Tom is not power, but love. It has always been your greatest strength, even when I failed to honor it. Harry showed the note to Wednesday, who studied it with narrowed eyes. Cryptic to the end, she observed. Yet perhaps not entirely useless. What do you mean? Love is a magical force older than any spell, she said thoughtfully. My family's darkest rituals all contain elements of it, willingly given blood, sacrifice for another, protection freely offered. Harry considered this. Voldemort has never understood love. He sees it as weakness. Then he misunderstands the fundamental nature of power, Wednesday concluded. A tactical error we can exploit. The evacuation of Hogwarts began at dawn 3 days later. Students lined up in the Great Hall with packed trunks while professors maintained a convincing display of controlled urgency. McGonagall's announcement cited credible threats against the school necessitating temporary relocation to secure facilities. Wednesday orchestrated the charade with meticulous attention to detail, ensuring their actual plan remained known only to key network members. The rest genuinely believed an evacuation was underway, providing authentic reactions for any watching spies. Transport units depart in sequence, McGonagall announced. First years with Professor Flitwick, second years with Professor Sprout. Harry waited with the 6th years, deliberately positioned in the middle of the evacuation to make his departure neither too obvious nor too concealed. Ron and Hermione stayed close, maintaining casual but alert postures. They've taken the bait, Luna whispered as she passed, ostensibly adjusting her radish earrings. 3 observers reported movement among marked supporters in Hogsmeade. Harry nodded imperceptibly. The network's intelligence cells were tracking Death Eater communications through various means, including enchanted objects placed in strategic locations. When Harry's group departed via a convoy of supposedly secure carriages, everything proceeded according to plan. The convoy headed not toward any train station or ministry safe house but on a circuitous route designed to appear random while actually leading directly to their prepared location. The attack came exactly where they'd predicted, a seemingly vulnerable stretch of road where the carriages had to slow for a sharp turn. Black-robed figures appeared on all sides, firing curses that splashed harmlessly against shield charms activated seconds earlier. Protego Maxima! Hermione shouted, reinforcing the shields as students who weren't part of the plan screamed in genuine terror. Everyone down! Ron ordered, his confident command voice ensuring compliance. Harry made a show of panicked defense, intentionally missing several counter-curses to maintain the illusion of being caught off guard. Wednesday, meanwhile, activated the port keys hidden throughout the convoy, not the emergency evacuation port keys the Death Eaters would be expecting and blocking, but precisely calibrated transporters to their actual destination. The convoy vanished just as Voldemort himself appeared, his serpentine face contorted with rage as his targets disappeared before he could breach their defenses. They rematerialized at Stonehenge, where the remainder of their network waited in concealed positions. The ancient stone circle had been modified with barely visible runes etched by cursebreakers, creating a complex web of defensive and offensive enchantments. Positions, Harry said calmly, helping students not involved in the plan into the protected central bunker disguised as an archaeological tent. He'll follow within minutes once they trace the port key signature. Wednesday joined him at the predetermined focal point. Nagini will be with him. She must be eliminated before we engage Voldemort directly. Neville's team is prepared, Harry confirmed. They'll target the snake exclusively. Around them, network members took their positions, former Aurors, skilled duelists, cursebreakers, and even several goblins who had chosen to support their effort after the good faith gesture with the Sword of Gryffindor. Fred and George distributed their latest defensive inventions, while Hermione coordinated communication between the various teams. The air crackled with tension as they waited. Harry felt strangely calm. Unlike every previous confrontation with Voldemort, this one came on his terms, with preparation and support. Even if they didn't succeed completely, they had already changed the narrative, from a lone prophesied child facing an immortal dark wizard to a networked community standing against tyranny. A sound like thunder rolled across the plain as the anti-apparition wards they'd established registered multiple impacts. Dark figures materialized beyond the stone circle, dozens of Death Eaters led by Voldemort himself, with Nagini coiled around his shoulders. Potter. Voldemort's magically amplified voice carried across the field. Did you think you could escape me with such transparent tactics? Harry stepped forward, intentionally exposing himself. Not escape, Tom. Lead. Voldemort's red eyes narrowed at the use of his birth name. You've learned some new tricks since our Department of Mysteries encounter. Dumbledore's final lessons before his disgrace. Dumbledore has nothing to do with this, Harry replied, voice equally carrying. This is about you, me, and the future of magical Britain. There is no future but mine. Voldemort hissed, raising his wand. I am immortal, while you have lost your greatest protector. Harry smiled grimly. About that immortality. He nodded to Wednesday, who opened a lead box containing the destroyed remains of the 5 Horcruxes they'd eliminated. For the first time, genuine fear flickered across Voldemort's inhuman features as he beheld the mangled diary, the blackened ring, the punctured locket, the cracked diadem, and the twisted remains of Hufflepuff's cup. Impossible, he whispered, though the magical amplification carried his voice. Just difficult, Harry corrected. And now, all that remains is the snake. Voldemort's protective response was immediate. He drew Nagini closer, casting powerful shield charms around them both as he backed toward his Death Eaters. Kill them all, he commanded. The battle erupted with blinding intensity. Death Eaters charged forward only to encounter the layered defenses the network had prepared. Ancient stones hummed with power as dormant runic magic activated, creating shield corridors that channeled attackers into prepared killing zones. Harry ducked behind a fallen monolith as spellfire crisscrossed the battlefield. Wednesday appeared beside him, her normally immaculate appearance now dust-streaked but her composure intact. Neville's team is in position, she reported. They need 15 seconds of clear line to the snake. Harry nodded, watching as their strategy unfolded. The network moved with practiced coordination, teams supporting each other in fluid formations that confounded the Death Eaters' more rigid attack patterns. Now. Harry called into his communication device. On cue, Fred and George deployed their latest creation, Peruvian instant darkness powder enhanced with a disorienting banshee wail that affected everyone not wearing their specially enchanted earplugs. Death Eaters faltered, clutching their ears and firing blindly into the darkness. Through the chaos, Neville's team struck. Guided by Luna's bizarrely effective ability to see magical auras through the darkness, they targeted Nagini with devastating precision. The snake writhed and thrashed as spells from multiple directions penetrated Voldemort's hastily erected shields. A terrible scream, both human and inhuman, tore through the darkness as Neville delivered the killing blow with the sword of Gryffindor, beheading the snake in a single stroke. Black smoke erupted from the severed body, the final Horcrux destroyed. The darkness powder dissipated to reveal Voldemort standing alone, his Death Eaters scattered or fallen, his final soul anchor destroyed before his eyes. For perhaps the first time since his resurrection, he looked fully mortal, enraged and, beneath the anger, afraid. "It's over, Tom," Harry said, stepping forward. "You're mortal now. Just a man with a wand." "I am Lord Voldemort," he roared, desperation edging his voice. "I have magic you cannot comprehend." "Maybe," Harry acknowledged, continuing his advance. "But you've never understood the most powerful magic of all." Voldemort sneered. "Love? Dumbledore's favorite delusion?" "Not just love," Harry corrected. "Connection. Community. The strength that comes from fighting for each other rather than yourself." Around him, the network members formed a loose circle, wands raised but not firing, not out of fear, but strategic discipline. This moment belonged to Harry, not because of prophecy, but because he had earned it through leadership rather than manipulation. Voldemort attacked with the desperate fury of a cornered predator. Killing curses flew in rapid succession, forcing Harry to dive and roll as green death missed him by inches. He returned fire with precisely aimed stunning spells, not attempting to match Voldemort's dark magic but focusing on speed and accuracy. The duel intensified, magical energy crackling between them as they circled the ancient stones. Voldemort's greater knowledge clashed with Harry's faster reflexes and tactical approach. Neither gained clear advantage until Voldemort made a critical error, attempting to use legilimency mid-duel to anticipate Harry's next move. The moment Voldemort touched Harry's mind, he encountered not the untrained thoughts of previous years but a trap prepared specifically for this moment. Wednesday had worked with Harry for weeks to construct mental architecture that would momentarily disorient anyone attempting mental invasion. Voldemort staggered, his concentration broken for just seconds, but enough for Harry's next spell to connect. Not a killing curse, but a precisely aimed Expelliarmus that caught the Dark Lord between casting motions. The Elder Wand, which Harry now recognized from Dumbledore's memories, flew from Voldemort's hand in a graceful arc. Harry caught it reflexively, feeling a surge of power as the legendary wand recognized a new master. Disarmed but not defeated, Voldemort reached for wandless magic, his hand extended toward Harry with fingers contorted in ancient gestures. But before he could complete the movement, dozens of spells from the surrounding network members struck him simultaneously, not killing curses, but containment and binding spells that wrapped around him in layers of magical restraint. Voldemort fell to his knees, bound in glowing chains of magical energy. His red eyes burned with hatred as he glared at Harry. "You think this is victory?" he spat. "I cannot be held by mere chains." "These aren't mere anything," Wednesday said, stepping forward. "Each binding contains elements from a different magical tradition. Breaking one would only strengthen the others." Harry approached the fallen Dark Lord, both wands in hand. "Tom Riddle, you sought immortality through division, splitting your soul, dividing our society, turning people against each other. And you think you've won with friendship and teamwork?" Voldemort mocked, though his voice lacked conviction. "No," Harry replied calmly. "We've won because while you were focused on domination, we built something stronger than fear." He turned to address the gathered network members, Death Eaters still conscious enough to hear, and the magically broadcasted recording being transmitted to wizarding wireless stations across Britain. "This isn't about me defeating Voldemort," Harry continued. "It's about all of us rejecting the false choice between a manipulative light and controlling darkness. Between Dumbledore's secrets and Voldemort's terror." He raised the Elder Wand, studying it thoughtfully. "This wand represents what's wrong with how we've structured our society, power concentrated in the hands of a single figure, passed through defeat rather than earned through service. With a decisive motion, Harry snapped the wand in half. Gasps echoed across the battlefield as the most powerful wand in existence splintered in his hands. "The age of following powerful individuals is over," Harry declared. "Whether they call themselves Dark Lords or headmasters or ministers. We build what comes next together, or not at all." Voldemort's face contorted with incomprehension. "You break your advantage. You truly are a fool, Potter." "No, Tom," Harry said softly. "I'm just not you. And that's always been the difference between us." As ministry officials finally arrived, late to the battle but eager to claim involvement, Harry turned away from the bound figure of Voldemort. The network maintained their positions, ensuring the officials couldn't simply take control of the situation. "What happens to him now?" asked a young Auror, looking uncertainly between Harry and her superior officers. "That's for magical society to decide," Harry answered. "But transparently, through due process, not secret manipulations or personal vendettas." Wednesday joined him as they walked away from the captured Dark Lord. "Poetic resolution," she observed. "Though my family would have suggested something involving Iron Maidens." Harry laughed despite his exhaustion. "I'm sure they would have. But we're trying to build something better, remember?" "Better doesn't mean boring," she countered with the ghost of a smile. "But I concede your approach has merits." Around them, network members helped the wounded while securing captured Death Eaters. The sun broke through clouds above Stonehenge, illuminating ancient stones that had witnessed centuries of history and now, perhaps, the beginning of something new. The aftermath unfolded over months rather than days. Voldemort's capture and the destruction of his Horcruxes became public knowledge, demystifying the Dark Lord and exposing the magical theory behind his apparent immortality. His trial, conducted with unprecedented transparency and witnessed via magical broadcast throughout Wizarding Britain, resulted in a sentence of permanent magical binding and imprisonment in a newly constructed facility, rather than execution. Death would have made him a martyr, Harry had argued during heated public debates. Better he lives as a cautionary example of power without compassion. The ministry underwent comprehensive restructuring, with Amelia Bones emerging as interim minister until proper elections could be held. The Wisingamots' hereditary seats were supplemented with elected representatives, creating a hybrid system that balanced tradition with accountability. Hogwarts reopened under Headmistress McGonagall with a revised curriculum that incorporated international magical perspectives and eliminated house-based educational disparities. Wednesday Addams, to everyone's surprise, accepted a position teaching a new course on comparative magical theory. "The narrow British approach to magic requires correction," she explained when Harry questioned her decision to stay. "Besides, this country's capacity for chaos remains entertaining." Harry himself declined numerous offers of political positions, preferring to maintain the network they'd built as an independent organization dedicated to magical cooperation and emergency response. Alongside Ron, Hermione, Neville, Luna, and others who had formed the core of their resistance, he worked to implement the principles they'd fought for: transparency, accountability, and collaborative problem-solving. Dumbledore eventually returned to Britain, though not to positions of power. His reputation permanently damaged by the revelations about Harry's intended sacrifice, he established a small research institute focused on magical theory. His first publication, The Greater Good, a critical self-assessment, became required reading in the reformed history of magic curriculum. On the anniversary of Voldemort's capture, Harry found himself back at Stonehenge for a small, private gathering of those who had been at the center of the battle. The ancient stones stood silent in the twilight as network members shared memories and celebrated their continued work. Wednesday joined him at the edge of the circle, away from the more boisterous celebrations. "Satisfied with the revolution you started?" Harry asked her. She considered the question with characteristic thoughtfulness. "Revolution implies completion. What we've created requires ongoing maintenance." "Always the optimist," Harry teased. "Realist," she corrected. "Societal change follows predictable patterns." The initial upheaval, followed by reactionary backlash, then equilibrium at a new baseline. We're entering the backlash phase. Harry nodded, aware of growing resistance from traditionalists unhappy with reforms. That's why the network needs to continue. To prevent backsliding. Indeed. Wednesday studied the gathering. Though I find myself surprisingly invested in the outcome. My family typically prefers chaos for its own sake. You've gone soft, Harry suggested with a smile. Hardly. She raised an eyebrow. I simply appreciate elegant systems. What we've built has a certain macabre beauty, like a perfectly balanced guillotine. That might be the most Wednesday Addams compliment possible. I'll take that as acknowledgement of authenticity. Her dark eyes met his. You never asked why I decided to transfer to Hogwarts in the first place. Harry blinked, realizing she was right. With everything that had happened, her original arrival had become merely the first chapter in a much larger story. Why did you? Prophecy, she said simply. Not yours, mine. Family divination suggested I would untangle a deadly web and liberate the entrapped lightning. Harry touched his scar reflexively. Lightning. You came because of me. I came because of a cryptic prediction, she clarified. Finding you at the center of Dumbledore's manipulation was serendipitous. So you didn't know what you'd find. I knew I would encounter something worthy of an Addams intervention. She almost smiled. We have a family tradition of disrupting fate's intended course. Especially when it involves manipulating children. Harry shook his head in amazement. All this time, I thought it was coincidence that you transferred when you did. There are no coincidences, Wednesday said solemnly. Only patterns we haven't recognized yet. From across the gathering, Ron waved them over as Hermione prepared to unveil plans for the network's next initiative, international magical cooperation beyond the limited scope of existing confederations. As they rejoined their friends, Harry reflected on the strange path that had led them here. Wednesday's arrival had seemed insignificant at the time, just another student transfer. Yet her outsider perspective and immunity to manipulation had changed everything, exposing Dumbledore's plans and sparking a revolution that transformed Wizarding Britain. Thank you, he said quietly to Wednesday as they walked. For seeing what everyone else missed. Don't become sentimental, she warned, though without real reproach. It doesn't suit either of us. Harry laughed. Wouldn't dream of it. Around them, their created family continued building something new from the ashes of exposed manipulation and defeated darkness, not perfect, but theirs, shaped by choice rather than prophecy or plots. And in that moment, Harry Potter felt something he'd sought his entire life, not just freedom from Voldemort, but freedom to write his own story. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.